After a decade in retirement, Hayao Miyazaki is back to bring us his new film, The Boy and the Heron. This movie follows the story of a boy named Mahito who is negotiating like his relationship with both his father and stepmother, but at the same time he's being followed by a supernatural heron who is constantly making observation about human life. That is basically as far as I want to go into it because this is going to be a spoiler-free review. I'm a big Studio Ghibli fan. I've watched every Studio Ghibli film that's been made, even Earwig and the Witch, even though I don't really consider that a Studio Ghibli film because it didn't follow any of the Studio Ghibli traits that the other movies have. And after a historical career, this is most likely Hayao Miyazaki's last film. But part of me wishes that he was one of those people that was immortal and just could keep making films forever because Studio Ghibli films are very unique, in my opinion. But then again, no one can live forever, so all good things have to come to an end, of course. I'm already going ahead and get the grading scale out of the way because, this movie is an A on my side because, this movie was amazing. It didn't disappoint like any other Studio Ghibli film would. But actually, the reason why is because with this video, I actually want to talk about a much bigger question. And that is this another Studio Ghibli masterpiece or just another Studio Ghibli film? And Studio Ghibli has a lot of films. All of them are really good. I'm excluding Earwig and the Witch out of that one, of course, because I really don't consider that one a Studio Ghibli film, even though it was made by Studio Ghibli. But, even though it has a lot of great films, like all other great movie production companies, it has its gemstones. A couple of them from Studio Ghibli would be, of course, Spirited Away. Another one would be Princess Mononoke. Another one would be The Wind Rises, which was Hayao Miyazaki's last film before this one. I'm wondering, is this movie on that level? First of all, a good fact is that The Boy and the Heron, the title of this movie, that's actually what it is called here in the U.S., but that is not actually the original title this movie was released as. It was released as How Do You Live in Japan. It was also released without any trailers before anyone went to the theater, so it just had a poster, so that's all they knew was that this was a new movie by Hayao Miyazaki from the poster, no trailers whatsoever. Of course, I watched the trailers, so I can't actually say like, oh, I didn't know what I was expecting or anything like that. But I will say that The Boy and the Heron is actually a much different title than How Do You Live, because if I had gone into this theater knowing that the movie was just called Boy and the Heron, I would have expected a very simple story. But this film is not simple at all. It actually delves very deep and goes on to some very interesting subjects, as do most Studio Ghibli films do. I did not get to see the sub version, which I find actually quite disappointing. Maybe I'll go see it again as a sub. I've only seen the dub so far, and even though it had a great cast, they were all good. Overall, great voice acting cast, but the one that shocked me the most was, of course, Robert Pattinson. He was the one voicing the Heron, and let's just say his voice was shocking. I was not expecting to hear that kind of voice coming from him. From what I know about this film when it was being made, Hayao Miyazaki really drew a lot on his personal life when it came to making this film. The movie may be titled How Do You Live or The Boy and the Heron, which is based off a novel of the same name, but it's all independent. It's like it doesn't follow this story, the How Do You Live story at all. It's an independent work, all done by Hayao Miyazaki himself, and he draws on his personal life a lot in this film. That's something he does in almost every film you see. If you've seen the artwork and the dedication and the visual imagery in his films, he really draws on his personal life and the things that inspired him and also affected him when he was younger, before he became known as the animation genius that we know him today. And you can see that even though he shows it here too as well, it goes on a much more personal level. If you're an avid Studio Ghibli watcher like I am, or a big fan, then you probably know what I'm talking about when I'm referring to Hayao Miyazaki. But if you've never watched one of his films, or maybe if you've watched one or two films, Hayao Miyazaki draws a lot of inspiration from his mother and father when it comes to creating his characters. But in this film, he shows a lot more than you usually see with those characters. He shows like things about like, you know, him losing his mother at a young age, or, you know, what his father used to do for a living when he was growing up. And I mean, it also demonstrates what people expect from him with him returning as an animator. So, I mean, people were expecting a lot probably from him the moment he decided to come back to make this movie. This journey that our main character Mahito goes on is actually kind of complicated in a way. I mean, originally I thought this world that he was in while I was watching it was some kind of parallel world, but it actually feels more like he is in a world that embodies creation itself, because he is seeing these beings that are supposedly going to the surface and they will become these beings in the real world. But also at the same time, this world that he's in is kind of built like an island. It's inescapable in a way. So I mean, when I was watching this film, I mean, it was kind of like, you know, I was seeing something, but it was actually something else. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Spirited Away, how Sen goes to another world and is trapped there, but it was in a much more complex sense. Although this movie is kind of complex, it is something that I actually enjoyed very well. I mean, it's one of the things that I enjoyed very much, because usually in Studio Ghibli fashion, it's when you watch a Studio Ghibli film, it's kind of like, you know, take my hand and come join the adventure and have fun while you're in this adventure, which is nice as well, because I mean, that's what Studio Ghibli's known for. But the complexity of this film actually made it a lot more interesting. It made me think, and I wasn't being spoon-fed everything, or I didn't already know the story just based off what I was seeing and what was going on. So, I mean, that was a real nice touch. Also, in true Studio Ghibli fashion, of course, the animation was still amazing. It was truly, you know, magical, like it always is. I mean, it's just nice to see 2D animation back on the big screen and topping the box office again, because, I mean, a lot of 3D animation now, I mean, this may not be the most accurate term, but to me, it feels like a lot of animation now is just done by robots. People just animating and giving us the same character just with tweaks here and there. I love seeing 2D animation because it really shows a lot more free will and creativity when like 85% of what we're seeing was hand-drawn. Now this movie, of course, like always, like I was stating before, to wrap this up, has great animation, a great story, and also delivers on a lot of different literary terms and a lot of different topics that, you know, you would usually not see in animated films these days. But what do I really think? I do think that this Studio Ghibli film is another masterpiece or another gem for this animation company. Now, do I think it is the best one out of the Studio Ghibli films? No, I do not. My favorite is still Princess Mononoke, and I'm pretty sure there are a lot of others out there who will say that there are other Studio Ghibli films that are probably better than this one. But I do think that this is a film that is worth a watch for people of all ages. So if you haven't seen Boy and the Heron, it's something I definitely recommend you see, whether it is in theaters or when it comes to future streaming platforms. So, I mean, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you have seen The Boy and the Heron, please comment here down below. If you like my other videos, please don't forget to like and subscribe. See you guys next time, and remember to stay epic.